Today's video is entitled Quieting the Mind and Stilling the Body. It's really about digesting our lived experiences, emotional responses, and reconnecting to our authentic core. It's just that was too long of a title. Anyway, I'm Ben Ufana, and let's dive into it. Oh, by the way, look below and click like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Anyway, the vast majority of us have not ever learned to work effectively with our emotions. And for that reason, we're not thoroughly digesting our lived experiences and our subsequent cognitive and emotional responses. And the fact that most people are not engaging in any kind of meditation practice, or if we do, uh, intermittently and not for very long. And maybe even we default to some kind of guided meditation practices, which are really not that effective when it comes to this process of digesting our lived experiences and subsequent cognitive and emotional responses. And yet, all of us to some degree are dealing with the stresses of work, the conflicts with our intimate partner or other people in our lives, financial concerns, health issues, pressures of raising children, of maintaining a relationship, household responsibilities, and the pervasive uncertainty about the state of our nation or the world that we're living in and where our lives are heading. And by the way, I will be referring to my notes because, as I said before, I pack so much information in these articles that it's impossible for me to remember everything that I want to include here. The emotions have substance to them. We walk into a room, someone's upset or angry, without them saying a word, we feel it. The stresses and the emotions that we're not processing, they remain trapped within our bodies indefinitely. They form this heavy, congestive, stagnant residue that saturates the organs, the tissues, and the cells of our body. They also create areas of chronic muscular body armor. The massive amount of sensory input resulting from our use of distractive technologies such as smartphones and social media overwhelms our processing capacity. Consequently, our body and mind is on sensory overload, and that impedes our ability to digest our lived experiences and our subsequent cognitive and emotional responses. These technologies also repeatedly trigger our brain's dopamine reward cycle, conditioning us to be continually seeking out the next reward and the next. It makes it extraordinarily difficult for us to focus our attention for any significant length of time. These undigested stresses and the stagnant emotional residue and the impressions of all this digital input that we're continually ingesting accumulates within our bodies, creating this dulling effect. This accumulation weighs on us, making us less creative, less resourceful. It impairs our ability to think clearly. And as a result, we're losing touch with this authentic core of our being that resides deep within. When I found myself reenacting the traumas and dysfunctional family dynamics of my childhood and adolescence, I had an instinctive sense that led me to dive deep into the depths of all those, at the time, excruciatingly painful emotions. In some instances, I would breathe for hours on end into these all-consuming emotions, but at some point, I could feel them breaking open and all that pain coming out of my body in waves. And as that happened, I began to experience these profound emanations of warmth flowing from within, and this deepening of my connection with my own authentic core being and the higher power. Despite that, there were also extended periods of time when I wasn't really doing any practice. And now looking back, there are times I feel a sense of regret because in many ways I was stuck in a holding pattern that was preventing me from healing, letting go, and moving on and evolving. But at that time, I had no guidance. I didn't have anyone to explain things to me or connect the dots. And so it was up to me to figure things out on my own. During my late 30s, I was running around the country training with a number of gifted hypnotists. And I learned some incredibly valuable skills that I was able to draw people into these profoundly deep trance states and impart instructions into their brain to process the traumas they were carrying. And yet, I myself carry these profoundly deep traumatic wounds that I wasn't processing because I wasn't doing the deep internal emotional work that I needed to be doing at that time. And there were instances where I would be on the mountain during the vision quest, a traditional Native American healing practice that involves going out to fast for 4 days and nights alone in the mountains without food and water. And despite the fact that there is this profoundly powerful presence that would be working to intervene on my behalf, I was so armored that I wasn't able to be fully receptive to this healing presence that was working with me during the time that I was on the mountain. Now, my intuition led me to develop a whole series of intensive meditation practices. And over time, I gradually became more consistent with my practice. For a while, I focused primarily on the sensations within my chest cavity. And then after some time, I shifted down into my abdomen. Later on, I taught myself to focus in those areas of chronic tension in my neck and shoulders and upper back. And as a result of doing so, I was able to dissolve these chronic layers of muscular body armor. If I was experiencing difficulty in a relationship, I would bring that individual to the forefront of my awareness. And that helped me to access the sadness and grief and all these other emotions that I needed to connect with in order to process the heartache, let go of those unhealthy attachments, and move on. Having trained with a traditional Native American doctor, a medicine man from the Kiowa tribe, I work as a conduit, allowing extraordinarily powerful presence to work through me to facilitate healing within the bodies and minds of those that I work with. And I've found that people have varying degrees of receptivity to doing the practices that I teach. Some will do the practices as I'm there working with them. Some could be quite resistant to go into those places where they feel vulnerable or where they're holding uncomfortable emotions that are trapped within their bodies. I would say around 25% of the people I work with are highly receptive and work with these practices consistently. Those who do not practice, that have spent much of their life shutting down emotionally, are less responsive. Their minds are more rigid. They tend to be stuck in limiting patterns or dysfunction. Their bodies are more armored, holding on to a lot more stagnant emotion, and are therefore less malleable. And the physical toxins, the stagnation, the armoring just accumulates as people age. There are times when I'm working with some individuals when I feel as though I'm working on a brick or a tree trunk. Conversely, I find that the bodies and minds of those individuals I work with who take the time to actually do these practices to be far more receptive to healing. Having these individuals bring their awareness to their physical body and the issues concerning them and their emotional responses facilitates a much deeper level processing of their lived experiences and their emotions. And this makes their bodies and minds much more malleable. And for this reason, they progress at a much faster pace. The deep emotional wounds in their bodies heal and their lives are transformed. So when I initially introduce people to this practice, I usually have them bring to the forefront of their awareness whatever is causing them distress or what's not working in their life, often because that's why they initially sought me out. Another reason is a lot of people have so numbed themselves or disconnected from their emotions that it's hard for them to feel much of anything else. As part of my ongoing process of healing and growth, I usually do about 2 hours a day. As soon as I close my eyes, I begin to tune into any stresses or concerns that come to my awareness, along with any feelings or sensations that arise in response. Feelings and body sensations may also arise independently of any specific stress or concern. And some of the feelings and sensations are actually quite pleasurable. I'll then start breathing softly and deeply while fully immersing my awareness in the middle of any feelings or bodily sensations, following them as they go through their progression. Like most people, I have at times found it difficult to sit still and remain silent while focusing on the feelings and sensations within my body. In these moments, my mind will wander. Maybe I feel scattered and restless. I begin to open my eyes, see how much time has passed. And I feel it's become a lot more challenging for many of us because of our use of these distractive technologies, as well as the increasing demands of our current age. We always have this sense that we need to be doing something or ingesting some form of digital media either from our social feeds, our Netflix. We're so caught up in this compulsive addictive cycle that we've lost the ability to be present with ourselves. Growing incredibly frustrated with my restlessness, my distractedness, I began to experiment and find a way to deepen my practice. I started by fully opening myself to the feelings of resistance. In other words, I'd be breathing into them. I'd also say to myself, keep opening, softening, relaxing ever deeper into any feelings or sensations that arise. As I set the intention, I could just feel myself softening and descending into ever greater depths. As I would reach these deeper levels, there were times when it would just feel incredibly blissful. And I could also feel much deeper levels of processing of my lived experiences and emotional responses taking place. And time also seemed to pass more quickly. Many instances, maybe 90 minutes or even more than 2 hours could go by without my feeling a need to open my eyes to check how much time had passed. Sitting on a cushion or in the lotus posture can work for some people, especially if you have the right pelvic tilt. And yet many people are not too inclined to do meditation practice because of the physical discomfort involved. What works best for me and for many of the people that I've taught these meditation practices is to find the most comfortable chair to sit in, a chair where you're sitting reasonably upright. I find in my own experience that when I'm not distracted by the discomfort of sitting on the ground or not having back support, I'm able to go much deeper and I'm able to practice for far longer. To do this practice, it's important for you to start by acknowledging what's happening in your life, what issues or concerns are coming to your awareness, or if it's the person you're interacting with that's evoking some emotional response. Next, notice what you're feeling in response to these issues or the circumstances you're dealing with or an individual. Where are these feelings situated in your body? And to the best of your ability, bring as much awareness as you can to these feelings. Center your awareness, fully immerse your awareness in the depth of these feelings and sensations, breathing as softly and deeply as you can from the depths of what you're feeling, and just continue to follow these feelings as they go through their progression. It's also critically important how you breathe. So many people breathe shallowly, high up in their chest. And if you're breathing so shallowly, it's not going to allow you to process your lived experiences and your emotional responses. So, to the best of your ability, breathe as deeply as you can, if at all possible, all the way down to your abdomen, expanding your abdomen, but also expanding your rib cage. As you take these full, deep breaths, breathing as slowly, as softly, and deeply as you can, that's going to engage the innate healing intelligence residing within your own body and mind. Making time for daily practice is crucial because if you're not able to still your body and remain in silence while breathing into the depths of the feelings and bodily sensations, especially those that arise in response to the issues and concerns and challenges that you're dealing with on a daily basis, you're not going to be able to digest these lived experiences, your subsequent cognitive and emotional responses. And consequently, all that stress and undigested emotional residue will continue to accumulate within your body. That's going to have an adverse effect on your mental and emotional states, your ability to function. And if it's not already in time, it's going to negatively impact your physical health. Working with this series of meditation practices that I've developed over the years is a critically important aspect of healing. These practices can be incorporated with many different healing modalities to facilitate healing of the traumas of your childhood and adolescence, and also as well as those that have occurred later in life. It will also help you to diffuse and digest the stresses and emotional challenges that you're facing in your present day life. And it will engage your body, mind's creative problem solving capabilities, offering you workable solutions to the conflicts or challenges that arise, the issues that are concerning you. And you'll also be better able to adapt to life's ever changing circumstances and gain access to the resources needed to meet the challenges that you're facing. And by dissolving and digesting the stresses and the emotions that would otherwise be accumulating within your body, you'll also be able to access and deepen your connection to the authentic core of your being residing within. And rather than stagnating or remaining stuck, you'll be continually growing and evolving. Anyway, as I said, do click like, subscribe if you haven't done so, and look below for the link to this article or any other essential details that I may have left out in this video.